Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, we're going to ask the Councilwoman Spruill lead us in prayer and ask everyone to please stand for the pledge.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity together again to do the business for the city. Lord, I pray that you would give us clear minds and understanding in the things we're about to consider. I thank you for the people and the staff that serve us. I appreciate the people in uniform that take care of us and protect us. Lead, guide, and direct us, and we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. First item on the agenda is to consider approval of the June 4th, 2024 regular session and the June 10th, 2024 special minutes. Council, if we have had a chance to review, the floor will be open for a motion.
I've had a chance to review and make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Hageman, and second by Councilman Hinton. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. Our next item, which is item 2, is our public comments. The City Council welcomes citizens' participation and comments at all City Council meetings. Citizens' comments are limited to 2 minutes out of respect for everyone's time. The Council is not permitted to respond to your comments. The Texas Open Meetings Act requires that topics of discussion, deliberation be posted on an agenda not less than 72 hours in advance of the council meetings. If your comments relate to a topic that is on the agenda, the council will discuss the topic on the agenda at the time that the topic is discussed and deliberated at this time. If we have anyone that would like to address the council, please come up, state your name, address, and voice your concerns.
Mayor, Council, my name is Debbie Corbell and I live in the city of Mount Pleasant. I want to bring this document to your attention. It is called Body-Worn Camera and Other Portable Audio Recorders. I bring this document to your attention because the past city manager, Thatcher, and Human Resources Director developed a policy about audio-video usage implemented for one department only. My question is, what were they afraid of? That you create a policy because you're afraid of what's been documented, of the things that were being said at the time or what you got caught doing on video. And from what I hear, that may be a lot. They should be afraid. If you are silly enough to believe that only one person in the city or one department has taken pictures, text, or other type of information that has gotten out or was shared, you are sadly mistaken. If you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't be worried. This probably started over the Alexander Road work that the city was doing because one employee was asked, "Did you tell her about that?" Even though that employee did not provide me with that information, from then on things appeared to have gone downhill for them, and of course that employee is no longer serving the city. From what I was told, the employee was written up for something that is allowed in our Policy and Procedures Handbook and widely accepted at even City Hall as being done, as well as being told that council members and certain people had to be treated differently, that you had to leave them alone policy. Even after a supervisor assured the employee they did nothing wrong, one of the items that the employee was written up for was done by other employees who were just doing their jobs and had video to prove it. The employee was still written up and reprimanded. The actions of Thatcher and your human resources officer, and maybe others, are possibly going to come back and bite the city and the taxpayers in the backside again. And when explaining to the HR director about what was a violation and what was not, and that council members were no better than anyone else, and that everyone should be treated equally, at one point, your HR director said, "I work for Ed Thatcher. You should look at this policy and repeal it immediately and check into that," and I'm sure the person would be willing to talk to some of you. It's another example of the things and the way business was conducted before and accepted. But it's not the way this council should accept things to be run, and all the council should be held accountable just like any other city employee or any citizen. None of us are above doing and being treated equally. Also, when you announce that there's going to be a November election, I'm going to run for council.
Do we have anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and close that item on the agenda. We'll now move on to item 3. Item 3 is to consider approval of Resolution 2024-7, authorizing the removal of Laurie Mays as investment officer and removal of Ed Thatcher and Laurie Mays from all certification agreements and investments with financial institutions on accounts of the city of Mount Pleasant, and adding Elaine Rowe as investment officer and adding Greg Nyhoff to all certification agreements and investments with financial institutions on accounts of the city of Mount Pleasant.
Good afternoon. So in order for us to make any kind of changes to the bank accounts at Guarantee, we have to have a resolution approved by the council stating that, so we can take off Ed Thatcher and Laurie and replace them with Elaine Rowe and the city manager.
Thank you, Candace. Council, do we have any questions or discussion on this item before I open it up for a motion?
It seems pretty straightforward based on just replacing people that were in those positions with people that are currently in the position. My recommendation would be to move forward with a resolution to change the names as described.
All right, I take that as a motion to approve.
Yes.
I second it.
All righty. Have a motion made by Councilman Hagan, second by Councilman Hinton. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. Our next item is item 4. Consider ordering a special election to fill the unexpired term of council member place 1 and charter amendment.
And again, this is just to call the election for November the 5th, which is a Tuesday, the second Tuesday in November, and our charter amendment. I will also like to note that we will have at least 2 workshops so that we can get the citizens' input and have all that together, because we would need all this information by August the 19th.
Thank you, Candace.
I would like to say that in regard to the charter, so I'm asking you, Candace, I would like to have the citizens' input. So is it, what do you call it, a workshop, a town hall, where people can come and tell us what they think? Okay, that's what I would like to have. I would like to hear from the people.
We will have at least 2. We can do one at the community center in Oaklawn, but we would need to do one here so it's streamed. In case someone is not able to come, they can still send in the request online and or email them in. And I will also like to note that our plan is to put the current charter on the website, which it is, but a PDF version so that it's easily accessible, and then one with all the changes so that they can know, hey, these are the changes that are needing to be made, and we can add all of those so everyone can see them.
So at the new center, we can't stream the new place. So Sonia, is it possible maybe that she could, she used to film all the, go live with the Civic Center. I mean, you used to go live with our city council meeting. So maybe, if it's a night that she could do it, is that possible that she could appear at that? If we had 2, one to stream here and then maybe she could film, is that possible?
I think that's totally up to her. We don't have any rejections to her, Miss Woods coming to do so. And any other journal that might want to come out.
Follow up there, the Civic Center, are we able to stream from that location? All right, just curious. I'm just thinking of turnout, because there's a lot of people. The Civic Center might make more sense too, outside of Oaklawn.
Yeah, well, I don't see why we couldn't have them. And if we could do 2 or 3, I mean, as much as we need to get the public involved, I think that's what we need to do. So if we can do one at the Civic Center, one over at the community center, and have one here where it's live stream, I don't see a problem with that.
Mayor, I agree with that. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, with that being said, if we have no further questions, I'll open the floor for motion on this item.
Well, I make a motion that we hold an election a special election on November 5th, and also that we vote on city charter amendment.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilwoman Redfern, second by Councilman Hageman. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. Our next item, item 5, is a public meeting, and consider adopting ordinance 2024-12 for water conservation and drought contingency plan. Mr. Racer.
Mayor and Council, this is a public meeting that we're going to be holding for our water conservation plan that we have to renew every 5 years. But Ms. Ziggy West will be presenting this. She puts it together for us to keep us into compliance every 5 years. So she is here tonight for any questions you might have.
All right, we welcome you to come on up, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's a button up there that you have to hold down.
Sorry. This, as Anthony said, this is the Water Conservation Drought Contingency Plan that's due every 5 years from the Texas Water Development Board and from the TCEQ requirements. We update it with the previous 5 years worth of water data so that we can furnish the state with projections for water usage and water consumption. It's existing already, so it's just a basic update every 5 years.
Correct. Okay, Council, we have any questions?
Yeah, from the last time this was updated to now, I mean, what was any dramatic change or any impacts?
No, sir. Most everything stayed basically the same. There was a little more in usage because we had an up in population. Based on that, the gallons per capita per day stayed about even.
So any impacts, just say it doesn't rain for the rest of the year? Any concerns on how it, just I know people are asking that right now that are watching, so just wanted to kind of float that out there.
The information that we get is based on the past 5 years. So we do try to project when we go into drought stages. That is a part of this plan, which would be the drought contingency part, where it allows the city to implement stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is voluntary reduction. Then we go to mandatory reductions where we have scheduled watering and so forth, up until we get to an emergency condition where basic needs are the only thing that people can use water for.
Awesome, thank you for that.
I noticed something, and I'm sorry I've not paid attention to this before. Under section 7 where it says triggering the criteria for initiation and termination. I started noticing the language where it says the levels in Lake Bob Sandlin are declining. It says that in number 2, and then it also says it down in are they declining?
That is when you go into these stages if it declines to that point. If it declines to that point, that is when that stage becomes active.
Anyone else on the council would like to question? Do we have anyone, Madam Secretary, online that have any questions? This is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the item? All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and close the public meeting part of this agenda item and move on to consideration of adopting the ordinance.
I make a motion to adopt the new water conservation ordinance in a vote.
I second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Hagman, second by Councilman Hinton. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Motion has been made, votes have been cast. It is unanimous. Thank you, ma'am. We'll now close that item on the agenda and move on to item 6. Item 6 is to consider pay request from Wicker Construction for work on the Sports Complex Regional Lift Station. Mr. Race.
Mayor and Council, this is estimate number 7, pay item for work that was done for the sports complex on the north end of town. And basically what this is $35,287.75 for some concrete that was poured for the driveway approach to the lift station and at the lift station.
All right, thank you. Council, we have any questions on the item?
Do we have any photos of the work being complete?
Not on this job, no, sir. We are 97% complete. Once the lift station will be, my mind went blank, sorry. It will be tested on next Tuesday for a test run, and if that passes, then what we have is just shutting off the 2 lift stations that'll be decommissioned, and we'll be up and running on that project.
And is there a final remittance after this one on Go Live?
There will be a final payment on this here. Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Any further questions? All right, we'll open the floor for a motion on this item.
I make a motion to pay Wicker Construction for the requested sum of $35,000. Get to it. $35,287.75.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Hagman, second by Councilman Hinton. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now close item 6 on the agenda. Next item is item 7, which is consider award of a bid for West Loop wastewater collection improvements. Mr. Race.
Mayor and Council, this is a project we've been working on for, I guess about 2 years, and so we finally went out and got the bids for it, and Lanny Buck with KSA will present that to you, okay?
Thank you, sir. Welcome, Lanny.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to be in front of you. What you have before you is our letter noting that the low bid for the project was Wicker Construction in the amount of $9,816,351.10. There were 8 bids submitted on the project. The high bid on the project was $16,833,000. So there was a decent spread on the project itself. Bids were read aloud on June the 6th, and we have, as just mentioned, we've worked with Wicker Construction several times and believe they're well qualified to do this project.
How long will it take, maybe?
It will take, I should have looked at that before I came, but it'll take about a year to do the project, a little over.
So the completion will run almost in line with the update on the wastewater plant, sounds like.
That was the exact idea, was that they would basically start up about the same time so that when we get the extra capacity, we start adding the extra sewer capacity year two.
All righty. We have any further questions?
Yeah, I'd like to defer to the city manager. What are your thoughts on the bids? I know you probably had a chance to review them yourself, so just given, I've just received those today to look at since Friday. Do you have an opinion?
Certainly, thank you for the question. I obviously support staff and the recommendation here. I think that we did talk a little bit the other day, and just to providing a little more information, like what was the engineer's estimate, and we'll work on that in the summarizations. But certainly, when you look at an engineer, you would like to see the engineer's estimate in the middle, and his KSA's estimate was in the middle, and it does have a pretty big spread. Sometimes you like them tighter, but that's what you want to see from an engineer doing the work, is a realistic estimate where you get some higher, some lower. And you have a lot of information here, so I think we'll talk about you know, how we present this in the future, so that, you know, is the project budgeted, and you know, what is the scope. It does say we recommend them and qualify, but we're going to add a little more to this in the future. But I definitely support this recommendation from KSA and staff.
Thank you.
One thing I will add is that Mr. Nyhoff did ask for our engineer's estimate. The first one we did was somewhere around 11.5 million. When we did the plans, we estimated about 10.6 something. That was, I think that was almost the exact number of number two bidder on the project. So we feel pretty good about where the bids came in.
Appreciate it.
So, can you tell us, because there are people watching online too, exactly where this is going to go and what this is going to do?
Yes, and I apologize. We've been working on this and bringing it for 2 years, so I may have skipped over a few steps here, but this essentially would go from the intersection about where the Toyota dealership is, out on the loop, all the way around the loop, all the way to the wastewater treatment plant. So past Preferts, and then it would go down the hill, fairly close to the airport, to the wastewater treatment plant. This will also decommission a couple of lift stations that are pumping wastewater essentially to another drainage basin. So it'll take those out so that the eastern main collection lines, we will take a lot of the wastewater off of that and put on this new, because those are getting tasked to where they've got some high usage on those lines, and actually they're nearing their capacity. So this will take a lot of that flow off of that too. So we're trying to get a double whammy out of it, not only serving the loop, serving the proposed new developments, but also taking some of the burden off the existing collection line.
I knew we needed a lift station north, and so this is it.
So we are replacing some lift stations with another lift station. I think we're taking 3 out and putting 2 on. But they're going to be pumping to a different drainage basin so that we can, and better utilize, if we have new development come in along the west loop too.
All right. Council, do we have anything further? All right, we'll go ahead and open the floor for a motion on this item then.
I make a motion to approve this bid, for the $9.8 million. Recommend a vote.
Do I have a second motion?
I'll second.
All right, motion been made by Councilman Hagman, second by Councilwoman Sproul. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 I'm trying to think of the right term. If I'm not sure, do I recuse myself? I'll vote no.
All right. Motion, item will pass, 3-1. No problem. All right, we'll go ahead and close that item at this time. And we'll now move on to, item 7, which is, consider award of bid for West Loop wastewater collection improvements. Oh, did I just do that? No, I'm sorry. This is item 8. Item 8 is to consider appointment to Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustments. John?
Mayor, Council, I believe the individual that you have before you is Alan Salinas, if I'm not mistaken. I met Alan Salinas about 4 years ago. He was a journeyman electrician, just kind of out there working on the grind on a day-to-day basis. Since then, he's become a master electrician. He's also an instructor at the high school. He does live in the city. He actually built a new home about 2 years ago over on Gibson. He's very knowledgeable on the electrical code and ordinances, but he's always been very interested in the development process for the city. And so when we had this opening, I'd asked him if this would be something he'd consider. And he kind of jumped on it, thought it was a great idea. He's very eager to learn, willing to serve, and I think he'd be an asset if you guys choose to put him on the.
Quick question on that. Is there a resume available for him?
It would have just been the application that was submitted through the city process. I think. Would you have a copy of that, Candace? David may have a copy of it. I don't know where that application would be. David might have a copy of that.
I mean, I'd like to know at least maybe a little more before I could maybe put a vote to this.
All right, that sounds fair. I'll open the floor for the council to make a motion to table the item until we can look over the background of this person and go from there.
I move we table the item.
I second that.
All right, motion made by Councilman Hinton, second by Councilwoman Redford. Madam Secretary, record a vote on that.
Aye.
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 All right, that vote is unanimous to table, and it will be tabled until our next meeting. We'll now close that item on the agenda and move on to item 9. Item 9 is to consider a request from Mackenzie Joseph, P.E., on behalf of Nathan Tafoya of the Mount Pleasant EDC for the approval of preliminary plat, being a 10.907 acre tract of land situated in the Daniel McCall Survey, abstract number 357, being a portion of Mount Pleasant Business Park, Titus County, Texas, being an addition to the city of Mount Pleasant, Texas, and is generally situated east of Old Cookville Road and north of East 16th Highway 67. John.
Mayor, Council, this is a 10 or almost 11 acre tract, which is, as you can see up here, is just east of the concrete plant here. And it's a Mount Pleasant Economic Development Project. And essentially what they're proposing to do is to separate this into 2 lots. As you can see from the preliminary plat here, you have a lot here, a lot here. They will have a 60-foot right-of-way that will extend through. It'll go up here temporarily with a temporary turnaround. And he'll put in the road as needed as development comes into the city. So this proposed first edition, I'm assuming will be on this block right here. Eventually, the road will go through. It's so it's this 10-acre part. The road will go through here, and then eventually it should connect onto Commerce Road in the existing business part to create a loop that will go through. They will be extending water and sewer up to through the new road as it develops. It'll be a 10-inch water main and an 8-inch sanitary sewer. They will tie in just west of the concrete plant, right about down here, and then they'll run it up and down over through the right of way.
All righty. Council, we have any questions?
Why have you decided to divide this? Is there someone interested, or is it just just hoping that it'll make it easier to find someone to use the property?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Nathan.
Thank you, Mrs. Tafoya, for joining us.
Councilwoman Sproul, thank you for your question. You're asking why it's split into two pieces. Mainly is there wouldn't be any other way unless it's a 10-acre site for one client. So you have to have a road going in and going right through the middle. Naturally creates one side and two sides, and we're not creating additional lots inside of it. We want it to be more of an open canvas, because if somebody wants to take up the entire left side or the entire right side, we're going to let them. But the goal is to, if you saw on the right-hand side, maybe develop that one as a first lot. So the goal of this little piece, while it connects to the 200-acre park to the north of it, it will be that it's for smaller 2,500 to 10,000 square foot. We're still kind of toggling how we'll do that. We'll just kind of do the kind of initial goal is to do like a copy paste. What you kind of see when you're driving to Dallas, you'll see maybe some metal buildings that look exactly the same kind of in a row, just to allow those types of people to kind of come in and kind of get started and then graduate up. And so there'll be less restrictive covenants in place, and we have higher restrictive covenants with screening, and we don't allow lay down yards in the park above, and there's a lot of facade requirements for that for the northern park. So this one will have less restrictions to allow just people to kind of come in and get started.
I do see you have a few things noted in here, light manufacturing, corporate office, distribution center. Without going into detail, I mean, do we have other, prospects?
So we're always fielding those types of inquiries. One of the reasons for the park is, so to answer your question directly, there's not an existing project right now that needs something like this. But this is kind of what our job is to do, is go in, lay the groundwork, kind of get it prepped and ready, reduce cost, risk, and time to a potential client coming in. So what we're looking to do is we're also looking at the possibility of throwing up a spec building and getting that as an attractive element, bring people in and just keep adding on as we go. You asked, yeah, and I think that answers the question, but if you have any other questions, did I answer your question correctly?
You answered it. It was kind of specific, so that's in your letter here, so that's why I asked that way.
No, that's just because it's zone light industrial, so we did a catch-all. Those are all things that we can work with as an industrial corporation, and so it was that categories.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So basically, this is just approval of planning and zoning. There's not really anything concrete. It's just the approval for the road.
Yes, ma'am. So we're going and subjugating ourselves to the exact same process anyone else does in the city, and we're going to the P&Z board. We're doing geotech and engineering and doing all the same things that anyone else would do to get a site ready.
You spoke about possibly adding a spec building. Okay. I'm sure there's some people would be concerned with how that works and why you're doing it. So if you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. Can you tell me what you think people might have a problem with from a spec building perspective? What might be some of the concerns? And it could be fairly quick, but.
Yeah, I can. And I'll
go ahead.
I know that there was a spec building built there, and it was vacant for quite a while. And so, I mean, that's what, when you're talking about spec building, I know that was something that a lot of people mentioned to me during the campaign, was that there was a building that was, sitting there for quite a while.
So if the question was, would a building want to sit out there that's empty? So there's a few things to talk about. One would be the building that was built was a spec building. I would still support the exact same thing, copy pasted. Again, I really think that would be an attractive element for this community, especially in the environment post-COVID. If there's a lot more activity, especially in rural communities and second, third tier communities, as ours would be considered. And like I said, economic development's job, I truly believe, is to reduce cost, risk, and time. So getting those spec buildings up halfway built, or even all the way finished, it's not on the tax rolls. It's just there. I don't know that it hurts anyone other than maybe people's pride that there's a building there. There's not on the tax rolls yet. It's an attractive piece. We toured many people through there, and if they weren't able to get through it or get to the building, they at least knew our community. There were brokers from out of Dallas coming in, looking at it, viewing it. You have an amazing park here. So there's a lot of reasons from a marketing perspective to have something like this. That was a 40,000 square foot building. There were some, I wasn't part of the team that kind of set it up, but it was on a triangular lot. There were some access issues that Diamond C was able to come in. But to the point of why a spec building is important, was Diamond C had 2 or 3 months to get a laser coming from the United Kingdom, from London, and it was a 2-story laser, and they're like, we have 3 months, it's gonna be here in 3 months, we can't find something big enough anywhere locally, can we go talk about it? They actually talked to the manufacturer, lowered it, I think, by like a foot or two to make sure it fit within that spec building, which had like a 25, 30 foot square clear height. And so they were able to fit that building in with some slight modifications, and it was actually we were actually helped. And it's one of our own. Wasn't this I know there's an element of shiny newness when there's a novelty with a new company coming in, but it was one of our own. Is where their tax centers is their engineering, and one of their is where their engineers are. They're doing a lot of their innovative things in that building, and it's a great hallmark for future growth and businesses coming to the park. But what we're looking at is a lot smaller than that. So it's harder to fill 40,000 square feet than it is to fill 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet. And so to that point, one of the things that I knew when I first got here, and I heard many of the same things I'm sure you heard on the campaign trail. Hey, there's an empty building out there. I thought there was a huge gap in serving that smaller manufacturing, the smaller industrial client. And I had looked at a number of buildings, and my board's kind of initial thoughts at that time, let's just try to get this sucker filled. Let's work on some of the other projects. Let's clean up from a workforce perspective. Let's make sure we're building a good ecosystem to make sure we're addressing the needs of the community for present and future. And so we didn't really want to go into this sector now that the building is filled. One of the things that we can do is do what's called and Mr. Gregg would know what these are. Just that you can completely design, engineer, have it pre-approved, planning on an entire building virtually. And so it's done, it's ready to go. And so that cleans up a month or 2 months of time. There's things that you can do to kind of get a virtual build. There's not as much cost, but we know in the last year and a half, and I'm sure anyone in the community, if you try to get a warehouse with a dock door or an at-grade door, there's not a lot in the community. They're all gone. And there's nothing in that 2,500 to 12,000 square foot category at all anywhere in the community. And so what's happening in that the community is not aware of is that we're losing small little manufacturers with one job, 2 jobs, 5 jobs to neighboring communities within a 1 hour radius. And so we're looking to make sure that those people don't skip over us, because you can go to a lot of our you can go to the MLSs and the commercial broker. There's these here, and they can consider Mount Pleasant as a side option for their family business, whatever they're doing, they're working on.
Okay, thank you. Council, do we have any further questions? Mr. McGahey, you had a question?
So the question Mr. McGahey asked was this property, we bought this last year, absolutely, yes. So this property is not being purchased, we already own it.
Correct. Thank you.
And based on some previous conversations, the funding for this would come through the EDC.
Absolutely. Our funding is not commingled with the cities.
Alrighty. All right, any further questions? All right, if not, we'll open the floor for a motion.
I make a motion to move forward.
I second that.
I have a motion to approve by Councilman Hageman, second by Councilwoman Redford. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. We'll now move on to item 10, which is our city manager's report. Mr. Nahal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if I may just make one small comment in regards to the EDC conversation. You know, a lot of times you do get people that need to get in a building as fast as they can, and so obviously you have to look at the cost benefit, what the market looks like, but sometimes in having it ready, time, risk, and ready to move is what they need. Too many times somebody comes in and says, I need a building and I need it within 30 days, and so I do believe that I'm excited about Mount Pleasant's future when it comes to economic development. It just looks like there's a lot to go, and we just want to do it right. City Manager Report, I just want to make a couple comments. First, I want to talk about the finance, the audit committee members, Mayor Pro Tem, and Councilmember Sproul, have talked to me about the audit committee, and the second part of this finance report is that we have an interim finance director that will start next Monday. And so after that happens, then we'll be meeting together with the audit committee members and start really kind of looking at the audit with the new interim finance director. And so there'll be more information coming from them, I can assure you. And so that's just one of the positions too that we have vacant right now is the finance director. We also, the assistant city manager is a vacant position now. The public works director resigned a week ago. I think he just left recently. And then the community development director actually has given us his retirement for August. So a time of transition internally. People are stepping up, and I appreciate that from the employees of this city that are working under those. And we're going to fill some of those. We'll analyze whether some actually will get filled or not, and bring those forward as we go through that process. I wanted to say that have a meeting with Aaron from TriSud next week. I think that's been a priority of the city council to just try to touch base then and see if we can't make sure we have a great working relationship with them. So I look forward to being able to do that. And then finally, I had Anthony hasn't been up here enough today, and he's uncomfortable with it, so I asked him to come up one more time. We've had some issues at the wastewater plant, especially with the heavy rains that we've had. And I just think it's important for you as a council and the community to know that, because there's some significant costs associated with this, and better that you know it ahead of time, so when we do look at spending that money, you're aware of it. So, sir?
Thank you, sir. So just here recently, within the last a week and a half, we've got screw pumps at the wastewater plant. They're probably 80 feet long, 3.5 foot, 4 foot diameter, and that's what actually lifts our sewer water up into the basin of the plant. If you haven't been out there, I'll be glad to take you out there one day if you'd like, and it'd be more understandable. It's most unlikely that both screw pumps go down at the same time, but due to apparently the heavy rains and the sand that we do get that comes in, the grit and what have you, they're failing. One of them's completely failed, and so Mr. Nile come on that Wednesday, and then Friday I took him out there and looked at it. He looked at them, and so we had to make a decision pretty quick as to what to do. So we've been working on it. We had some guys come in from Georgia that work on these. That's what they do. They came in from Georgia last week. I met them. We've made a plan to get numbers, and we're gonna actually what we're gonna do is work through Wicker construction, because it can be a rehab project that with the plant going on, the build and what have you. And we're also going to be doing rehab on the old plant as well. So we're incorporating this together because we're probably looking at about $250,000, I'm guessing, to fix. It's just gonna be $50,000 probably just to have someone come in and do a look at them both. So we are in the process of looking at these guys. They have to be fixed. If they don't get fixed, then we have to bring in pumps. And right now we did have to bring a pump in because we can't be with only one pump, with only one screw pump. So we brought a pump in that's run off diesel. That's extra manpower, extra diesel, extra cost. But we do have it for standby right now in case the other one goes down completely. So, but we have 2 new ones sitting on the ground. I've got Lanny here with KSA. He can help out with this conversation. We're in the process of looking to see if we can take those new ones and put one of them in, possibly both of them in those places because they're the same size. The engineers are looking at that. If we can do that, then we'll be miles ahead. But we still have to get the other 2 fixed, but they take about 7 to 8 months on the minimum to get fixed. So if there's any questions, I'll try to answer if I didn't tell you enough.
So we're gonna replace the messed up ones with the 2 new ones as Plan 1, and then we're gonna get the other 2 fixed. So the other 2 fixed ones, are they gonna just go into the new expansion?
Yes, sir. When I say the old ones get fixed, they'll be like brand new. And yes, sir. And so they'll fit right into the new pit where the new ones would have went.
So we're talking about a full rehab, not just, fixing it.
Yes, sir. It's got to be full rehab.
Thank you.
I apologize. I said Wicker, but it's Heritage. I apologize.
Laney, this is, either of you, if they both failed, how is our sewer system operating with them both in failure mode?
Okay, so we have one that's still running, and then we did bring in a 10-inch diesel-powered pump that if it fails, we have a backup setting and ready to go. If both of them fail, though, we will have to bring in a second pump. But what we're hoping to do is get everything squared away with the engineers that are looking at to make sure the drives work with the new ones and everything that we have. And so if that works and everything, then we're going to start looking at trying to put those new ones in as soon as we get a cost from Heritage to see what it's going to cost to get all that retrofitted.
So the idea is we have a miscellaneous allowance in this project of $500,000. That miscellaneous allowance is for things that might pop up over time. We're far enough into this thing, although we're not into the rehab, so that's usually where you find the things that you don't see. But we're far enough into it that we feel fairly confident that we can utilize that monies without raising the price of the overall price of the bid of the project. I mean, still spending money, but it is money that was already accounted for it. And the other thing that's a little more complicated that's giving us heartburn is the drives for the new pumps spin the screw pumps faster because they're for a larger capacity. We put them on the other side where it doesn't have capacity. We could flood the plant itself. We have the ability to pump more than what the plant can actually handle hydraulically. So there's got to be some gearbox, either changing some gears or that's where the hang up is. We're just trying to figure out how to adapt that. But those are just details that we'll just have to work through.
Once you figure that out, what's the time frame to retrofit with the new pumps? Obviously, the piece you're describing is going to take a little more thought, and obviously you could probably put a full time frame around it. But once that decision's made, how long do you think it would take to get us back to good?
So we've got the new pumps on site. So it's a matter of lifting them out. You lift them off their mounts, stick them in the new hole. The question is, do we tie them back into the old gearbox, or do we take the gearbox out at the same time? Because we know we want to rebuild the gearbox too. So now we're kind of caught in limbo is really what the deal is, and I don't want to change it twice. So the idea is we rebuild the old ones back to the condition of the new ones. The screws are exactly the same. They're just spinning faster in the new side than the old side. So That's really all the complicated, so we're just trying to work through those details.
And there's no variability on those pumps?
Sorry?
Like a variable speed, there's no variability?
So the way a screw pump works, it's just like a drill, and so it spins at one speed, but the more water comes through it, it just carries more water inside that housing itself. So it's automatically variable speed, but I don't have the variable speed on the gear drive like you normally would with a normal VFD.
Appreciate it.
So, thank you very much. I just, for council and for the community, it's a big project, or it's an important project, because obviously a great question is what happens if both of them go down, and there are backups that are costly. And, you know, I appreciate the fact that there's questions about, you know, how are we going to pay for this, but you have to do it. I mean, there's just there's no alternative. You have to do this work in order to keep treating our wastewater, and so we're going to work as fast as we can to get this done as least expensive as we possibly can, but it's a very urgent situation, and I want to make you aware of it. I appreciate the work Anthony and the team has put in, and there is a backup, so people don't have to worry about what may not go down, and they're going to take care of that. So just move along, gentlemen. Thank you.
All righty. Well, with that being said, I do want to take time to thank the city staff and those that all participated in the Juneteenth celebration this past week. I think it went well, and we also today went to a ribbon cutting for local bounty. I think that that's going to be a great asset to our community. I think it created, we got about 70 employees. Is that right, Nathan? A little less. Okay, nearly 70 new jobs created through this local bounty. And if you get the chance, I think is going to be setting something up for the council. The ones that weren't able to go, we'll go out and take a tour. But if you get a chance to go out there, I think it'd be something to see. So I just wanted to give you an update on that and say thank you everyone for coming today. At this time, unless the council have any comments before we close?
Yeah, I have one real quick.
Yes, sir.
I know this agenda was fairly heavy, and honestly, I didn't have enough time to share, but more importantly, I think, you know, just my suggestion or thought was maybe we could start sharing the full agenda, so that way folks fully understand what we're talking about, not just guessing on and listening to us and seeing one piece of paper with 8 or, you know, however many items we're talking about. So I'm not sure what everyone else's thoughts are, but I thought that would at least help some transparency in the city.
Well, we'll certainly can look into doing that. We'll see how we move forward.
I
on
agree, and that's why I had to vote no, just because it was really the first time I've had a chance to study this. So I have questions. Not really sure. You just need to have time to study, so you know what you're doing.
Okay, Candace, is the full agenda not posted on for? Okay. All right. Well, we'll make sure that we can do that. I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Candace and I met late last week, and ironically, we were talking about getting you council members the packets a little earlier, especially because it was 200 some pages. And so we actually talked about that. We talked about the ability to actually post your entire packet. So what the public sees is the agenda, that top sheet, and they don't see the rest of it. And so certainly if that's something that you want to look at, Candace and I will have that discussion on how best we can do that. And as part of my report too, it's even in the cover sheets, we'll talk at our staff meeting on Thursday about a little more information on the front sheet that you look at where the resolution is. There should be financial information, a good summary. And so we'll talk about that. So will be some changes. It'll take a little time, but certainly we're going to work on that as a group. We want to be here to serve you and give as much information as we can. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Now.
Thanks.
I would like to add to what Mayor said about Juneteenth. There's a staff member, Clarabelle Banda, and I'm just real proud of her because she stepped up to do the event, and she I was real proud of her. And I think they did a wonderful job.
And again, I do believe, like I said, the city staff certainly, Clarabelle included, also our grounds people that did clean up and everything. I think they all did an awesome job, and once again, kudos to them. All right. All right, if we have nothing further, then we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting with a motion.
A motion, we adjourn.
Second.
At this time, we are now adjourned.